Not only are some of the brightest and most colorful TVs on the market becoming more affordable, but so are big screens, like 83 inches and up, the kind we're going to talk about in this video. They've never been more accessible or affordable, relatively affordable. Of course, when we talk about these larger-than-life panels, there are price differences and other trade-offs that play a role, but I think we can get you pointed in the right direction. Having learned from some of your feedback in our video discussing the best TVs of the year, I wanted to make sure that we didn't leave out some of the truly budget models. After all, some people just want a big screen and don't care about some of the other bells and whistles. And to that end, rather than just tell you that the TCL QM6K at its discounted price of $1,100 is probably the preferred 85-inch TV in that price range, I'll present options so that you have an idea of what else is available with trade-offs and you can decide what matters most. So, the QM6K QD Mini-LED TV, one of the best bang for your buck TVs of the year. Not the brightest, but also plenty bright enough for a lot of situations. And at $1,100 for 85 inches, that's a really great value. But if you want to save even more, there's the Best Buy exclusive QM5K at its discounted price of $850 and the TCL Q5 for $730. I'll put the full price in parentheses for these TVs so you can reference that as well, just in case the prices I'm listing in this video change between now and when you're viewing it. Now, with those sub $1,000 options, there are significant trade-offs. First of all, the Q5 is not a mini LED TV like the two other options here. It's direct lit without a local dimming feature, so you're not going to get the same performance in terms of deep blacks and contrast. Things will just look a little bit flatter. This option also runs Amazon's Fire TV instead of Google TV, should that matter to you as well. Neither the Q5 or QM5K match the 144Hz refresh rate of the QM6K. Both of them sit at 60 Hz instead. So given that information, I'll stop right there and say that if the difference between the Q5 and QM5K is $120 and it's a TV that you plan on having for years, it's worth going with the QM5K. Improved picture quality at big sizes makes a real difference because the imperfections are literally larger on a bigger screen. So what may not bother you at 55 inches just might at 85. But that's just my 2 cents. Comparing the QM5K to the QM6K head-to-head, in addition to what we just mentioned, brightness and a lot of the non-gaming features are pretty close. The QM6K does have 2 HDMI 2.1 ports compared to just one on the QM5K, so for external devices and gaming, the QM6K would be the answer for me. The $250 difference between the two models is something to think about. That money could go to a soundbar or Blu-ray player or, back in your pocket. So basically, if some of the significant differences between the QM6K and QM5K don't bother you, and you're a pretty basic TV viewer that doesn't game, you won't miss what you don't care about with the QM5K. Save the money. As for other cheap models, of which there are a few from other brands, I just haven't seen them and I'm just not as familiar. I'm sure Samsung's 85-inch options around that $700 to $900 compare closely to the Q5, but again, at that price, I'd probably go with the QM5K, and I think that's exactly why TCL made that available. It undercut some of the premium options while still being a better bang for your buck than other brands' budget offerings. Okay, let's step it up a bit price-wise to what we can call the lower mid-tier. And reminder, with extra large TVs, yeah, some of these higher performing TVs around the $1,500 to $2,000 range are considered on the cost-friendly side. Let's go with the 85-inch TCL QM7K coming in at $1,800, though it was once as low as $1,500. If you see it again for the latter, that would probably be my pick. It's better than the QM6K in every way without passing the $2,000 mark. However, if you can push it a little more to that point, the 85-inch Hisense U8QG is even better. It's significantly brighter and delivers better color as well. I'm also a big fan of its 3 HDMI 2.1 ports and the USB-C display port, ideal for connecting certain external devices to display on the TV. But at this point, we also have to consider the first big screen OLED option, the 83-inch LG B5. I keep coming back to this model as a suggestion for so many people because it's just such a good deal. I know we go on and on about brightness and how the B5 isn't LG's best in that department, but I do still think it's good enough for a lot of people. And if you can, check one out in person. When you see its contrast and color, you'll be impressed. I also, real quick, need to remind you that when we film TVs, we expose the camera for the TV's brightness. So it's hard to tell when a specific model is brighter than another specific model just based on what you're seeing on YouTube, unless it's side by side with another TV. All that to say, the LG B5 at 85 inches is a phenomenal deal and gets a big thumbs up from me and the really in-depth TV reviewers that I look to for advice as well. Okay, so now that we're starting to talk about TVs that are north of $2,000 in the upper mid-tier, we'll call it, we're also at a bit of a fork in the road. If this is where your budget is, you have some really good options and you can go one of two ways. You can opt for quality and the more feature-rich and brighter models, or you can just straight up go big, like 98 inches or more big. And those will still be great TVs. For example, you could go with the 85-inch Samsung QN90F, one of our favorite mini-LED TVs, for $2,700. What are you paying for? 4 HDMI 2.1 ports, increased brightness, and spectacular reflection handling. With the matte coating, it disperses distracting light instead of directly reflecting it. But if you don't need that, the TCL QM7K at 98 inches is about the same price. So if you have the space and want to be just consumed in the viewing experience, go for it. Shoot, you could save $1,000 and go for the 98-inch TCL QM6K as well. Now, as we pass $3,000 in what I would consider the top tier at 85 inches, I think you need to know more specifically what you're looking for from the TV beyond just size and brightness. All of these TVs are going to be high performers, but they do things differently. And sometimes that's the difference between a few $100s or more that you may not need to spend. The first separator is obvious: OLED or Mini-LED. The 83-inch versions of the Samsung S90F or LG C5, $3,300 and $3,600 respectively at the time of recording this video, cost a lot more than the Mini-LED TVs we just talked about at the same size. Or you could pay a little bit more and go significantly bigger with the 98-inch TCL QM8K or 100-inch Hisense U8QG. Both are right at $4,000, though they have been sold for less at times. And while that's a ton of money, if you value size and picture quality, I'd argue that they're close enough to OLED to go for 98 or 100 inches instead of 83. There's also the 85-inch Sony Bravia 9, which delivers the best quality in a mini-LED TV, but comes at a price that's similar to OLED. What I'm trying to say here is, if you know what you're looking for, you're gonna have a much easier time nailing down your choices. My picks would be, for an 83-inch OLED, the Samsung S90F. I'm saving a bit of money compared to the C5 and getting everything I need. If you want the premium OLED option, the LG G5, it comes with a premium price tag of $5,300. It tops the rest of the OLED field at this 83-inch size because of its color volume and brightness with the RGB tandem OLED panel compared to the WOLED or WOLED panel on the rest. Not to mention, Sony's Bravia 8 and A95L only go up to 77 inches. For mini-LED TVs, as much as I would love the Sony Bravia 9, it sits in a bit of a no man's land for me, only because I value price and size a little more than quality because, again, these TVs are all very good. And your preferences may be different. Maybe you do want premium quality and picture, and so you go Sony Bravia 9. Anyway, that Bravia 9 comes in at $3,500, and at that point, I'd either find a way to spend a little bit more and get the 100-inch U8QG for $4,000, or spend significantly less to pick up an 85-inch TCL QM8K for $2,500. And the difference between that QM8K and the Bravia 9, it's gonna be worth saving $1,000. Now, for those of you that don't have money standing in the way, let me present the TVs that combine ultimate size and picture quality, a premium level, if you will. The 115-inch TCL QM7K goes for around $10,000, which is a ton of money to spend on a TV. But if you have a theater room or big wall that it can live in front of, more power to you. I can't think of many better options for hosting big viewing parties, especially if you're watching sports. This would be a perfect Super Bowl party TV. Again, price is going to be something to consider there, but the next few TVs somehow make it look like a steal. LG makes a 97-inch G5 OLED and sells it for 25 grand. You don't get the same RGB tandem OLED panel that you get in the smaller models, but it's still quite a sight to behold. An OLED TV that big is special. And so is Hisense's 116-inch UX RGB Mini-LED TV. It can also be had for $25,000. Inside of it, Hisense brings new technology that features red, green, and blue LEDs for an even richer color experience. With 8,000 nits of brightness and a juiced up processor, it is insane. Expensive, but one of the best TVs you can put eyes on. For now. Thanks as always for tuning in, everyone. I tried to do the list justice and give a variety of options for budgets of all kinds, but, and I know you will, let me know what I left out in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you again soon.